is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, violent clashes broke out across central Israel as thousands of ultra-Orthodox protesters blocked major highways and intersections in opposition to expanded military draft orders. President Donald Trump said he is confident a new anti-nuclear agreement with Iran will be reached this weekend, claiming military pressure helped bring Tehran to the negotiating table. The head of the Africa CDC is urging Western governments to provide financial support rather than impose travel restrictions, saying funding is critical to contain the outbreak. President Marcos Jr. cited corruption, poverty, and national disunity as the country's top challenges during the 120th Independence Day celebration, while also recognizing Senator Sherwin Gatchalian as Senate President pro tempore. Taylor Swift has become the youngest woman inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame as Forbes named her the richest female musician in history. And in sports, celebrations turned chaotic outside the Madison Square Garden after the New York Knicks Game 4 NBA Finals victory, prompting police intervention and multiple arrests. I'm Almar Forzuelo. Newsline World starts now. Violent clashes erupted across central Israel as thousands of ultra-Orthodox demonstrators blocked major intersections and trunk highways to protest intensified military enlistment orders. Verhil Parba has the latest updates.
Major transport routes across central Israel were brought to a standstill as thousands of ultra-Orthodox Haredi protesters blocked key highways and rail lines. Demonstrators occupied sections of Highway 4, Route 1, Route 6, and Tel Aviv's Ayalon Highway in protest over the arrest of 19 yeshiva students accused of refusing military conscription orders. The disruptions quickly escalated into clashes between protesters, stranded motorists, and police. Authorities deployed mounted units, water cannons, and batons to clear the roadways after hours of severe traffic paralysis. Several people were injured, including 93-year-old bystanders who suffered head injuries during a confrontation near Bnei Brak. The unrest highlights a deepening national divide over military service. Israel's Supreme Court recently ended long-standing draft exemptions for ultra-Orthodox students, citing the growing manpower demands facing the Israel Defense Forces. Religious parties are now pushing legislation that would permanently protect Torah students from compulsory service. Security officials warn the dispute has evolved into one of Israel's most sensitive domestic challenges, exposing widening tensions between the state authority and the ultra-Orthodox community. This has been Verhil Parba, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
U.S. President Donald Trump expressed absolute confidence that a comprehensive anti-nuclear agreement with Tehran will be signed this weekend, claiming heavy military losses have forced a more reasonable Iranian leadership to the table. Kai Villan tells us more.
The White House has signaled that a definitive diplomatic end to the bruising Middle East conflict is imminent. Speaking to reporters on Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump asserted that the United States is poised to sign a landmark memorandum of understanding with the Islamic Republic of Iran within days. Trump claimed that the Supreme Leader has already given his baseline approval for the accord. According to the chief executive, the primary condition of the treaty mandates that Tehran will never possess, develop, or purchase nuclear weapons in exchange for the immediate lifting of the economically crippling U.S. naval blockade in the Persian Gulf.
They will not have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that. They've taken a pounding like very few people could take. And they want to make the deal a lot more than I do. And we could have had it done the other way, I guess, but it would have taken longer. They got hit very hard recently, as you know. And I don't like to have to do things that way, but I felt it was necessary.
Trump bluntly attributed the diplomatic breakthrough to the total degradation of Iran's conventional military infrastructure following consecutive days of intensive American precision bombing. He noted that successive waves of leadership decapitation have brought forward a far more rational tire of Iranian negotiators. However, the American administration's triumphant tone was met with fierce rhetorical pushback from hardline legislators inside the Iranian parliament who slammed the White House depiction of the battlefield as an absolute delusion.
ترامپ رئیس جمهور آمریکا از ابتدای جنگ 12 روزه تا به امروز که ما قریب به 100 روز از جنگ رمضان رو سپری کردیم، همیشه در طول این مدت زیادگویی و بیان موضوعاتی که برگرفته از توهمات و رویکردهای متزلزل اون هست رو زیاد به زبان آورده. هزینه‌های بسیار سنگینی رو در این جنگ متحمل شده، آورده‌ای برای آمریکایی‌ها نداشته، مشکلات اقتصادی.
Ebrahim Azizi, head of Iran's National Security Commission, warned that if Washington relies on censored casualty statistics and attempts to launch fresh and calculated military strikes, it will face an even more painful and decisive response from a unified Islamic Republic. Despite the fiery legislative posturing from Tehran, independent regional diplomats maintain that technical delegations from both nations are already finalizing structural annexes ahead of the highly anticipated weekend summit. Reporting for Newsline World, Kai Villan, SMNI News.
The head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is urging Western nations to step up with direct financial aid rather than imposing travel bans to combat the spreading Ebola outbreak. The updates from Prince Tripoli.
In Africa, a sharp diplomatic demand has been issued over the international response to regional health emergencies. Dr. Jean Kaseya, head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, called on Western nations to set up and provide appropriate funding for the fight against Ebola, rather than simply slapping travel restrictions on Africa. Kaseya made his stance regarding the current Western policy approach explicitly clear.
But my message is clear to Western countries. We are doing our best, but we want to keep this disease where it is. We need to contain that. The best way to contain that is not travel restriction. The best way to contain that is to provide appropriate funding and support for us to stop the spread of this outbreak.
To coordinate a unified cross-border defense, continental leaders are preparing to hold a high-level emergency summit. Kaseya confirmed that all African heads of state would meet next Tuesday to discuss the regional crisis, with a session being officially led by the African Union Chair, the President of Burundi. The upcoming summit comes as medical networks face two highly distinct outbreak trajectories across East and Central Africa. In Uganda, health authorities have officially reported 19 confirmed cases of Ebola alongside 4 recorded fatalities. Meanwhile, the situation remains significantly more severe across the border in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. According to the latest official agency track, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has recorded more than 500 confirmed cases and over 200 deaths from the virus. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, SMNI News.
A large yellow plume has engulfed the sky over Johor, Malaysia, following a reported chemical leak at a local factory. Angie De Leon has the details.
A large yellow plume engulfing the sky over Pasir Gudang went viral following a reported chemical leak at a local factory earlier Thursday. The response was triggered after a 200-liter industrial tank containing spent inorganic acid, classified as scheduled waste under the code SW206, leaked into the environment. According to authorities, personnel from the Fire and Rescue Department and the Department of Environment were immediately deployed to the scene. First responders successfully brought the volatile factory situation under control shortly after arriving at the industrial site. No casualties had been reported so far. Authorities declared the situation fully under control by that afternoon. According to the Johor Department of Environment, air quality has returned to normal with no immediate danger to the public. Efforts were ongoing by environmental officers to completely secure the area and determine the exact cause of the industrial spill. Angie De Leon, your Global Citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, President Marcos Jr. cited corruption, poverty, and national disunity as the country's top challenges during the 120th Independence Day celebration, while also recognizing Senator Sherwin Gatchalian as Senate President pro tempore. Taylor Swift has become the youngest woman inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame as Forbes named her the richest female musician in history. And in sports, celebration turned chaotic outside Madison Square Garden after the New York Knicks Game 4 NBA Finals victory, prompting police intervention and multiple arrests. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Sa bawat araw, sa bawat sandali, kami ay SMNI.
Ang aming uniforme ay hindi lamang tela. Ito'y sagisag ng aming paninindigan.
Ipinagmamalaki natin ang ating bansa at ang ating pagiging Pilipino.
Pinagsama ng nagkakaisang layunin, ating isinusulong ang revolusyon sa media.
Ang templong tahanan ng Diyos at ang sinag, ang instrumento ng katotohanan, at liwanag na nagmumula sa iisang may likha. Pula, ang pag-ibig na nananalaytay sa ating mga ugat. Ang dugo ng bawat bayaning Pilipino na nagbuwis buhay para sa iyang bayan.
Itim ang kapangyarihan ng bansa at soberanya na tanging sa mamamayan lamang.
Ang bawat Pilipinong handang ipagtanggol ang kalayaan at katarungan.
Puti, ang kapayapaan at pag-asa. Taglay ang katapatan sa lupang sinilangan.
Kami ang SMNI. Salamat sa inyong walang sawang pagtitiwala at pagpanig sa katotohanan.
Iniibig ko ang Pilipinas. Ito ang aking lupang sinilangan. Ito ang tahanan ng aking lahi. Ako'y kanyang kinukupkop at tinutulungan upang maging malakas, maligaya at kapaki-pakinabang. Bilang ganti, diringgin ko ang payo ng aking mga magulang Susundin ko ang mga tuntunin ng aking pamahalaan. Tutuparin ko ang mga tungkulin ng isang mamamayang makabayan at masunurin sa batas. Paglilingkuran ko ang aking bayan ng walang pag-iimbot at ng buong katapatan. Sisikapin kong maging isang tunay na Pilipino sa isip, sa salita, at sa gawa.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas nating mahal.
Corruption, poverty, and disunity remain among the major challenges facing the country in its pursuit of freedom and development, according to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The statement coincided with the Philippines' 120th Independence Day celebration on June 12. Meanwhile, Marcos also acknowledged the leadership or Senate leadership of Senator Sherwin Gatchalian during his speech. President Catarong has the news.
Ay dapat na inaalagaan.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called on Filipinos to draw lessons from history as they confront present-day challenges and help build a stronger future for the nation. The appeal was part of his message during the celebration of the 120th anniversary of the proclamation of Philippine independence held at Rizal Park in Manila on June 12. Marcos said that remembering the past is not enough and that history should serve as a foundation for efforts aimed at achieving the country's continued progress. He added that history has shown that unity is key to attaining independence, while genuine leadership requires setting aside personal interests for the welfare of the nation. The president emphasized that freedom is not only won but must also be protected and expanded through the collective efforts of the Filipino people. He likewise recognized the challenges currently confronting the country.
Maraming hamon sa ating kalayaan at kaunlaran. Nandyan ang mga katiwalian, pagkakakanya-kanya at kahirapan. Nandyan din ang mga pandaigdig na kaganapan at banta ng tinatawag na climate change at kalikasan.
Despite these challenges, Marcos said he remains confident in the capability and resilience of the Filipino people. He noted that this strength is especially evident during times of disaster, when unity, cooperation, and concern for one another prevail among Filipinos. The president also urged every Filipino never to tire of loving, choosing, and standing up for the Philippines.
Ipalalim natin ang ating kamalayan, maging mapanuri sa katotohanan. Gamitin natin sa tama ang ating kakayahan, hindi sa masama. Lumaban ng patas sa araw-araw, huwag pagsamantalahan ang pinagpaguran ng iba.
Marcos encouraged Filipinos to place the nation's welfare above personal interests to ensure that future generations inherit a country that is stronger, more just, and more prosperous. The Independence Day celebration was attended by various government officials. During his speech, Marcos also acknowledged the Senate leadership of Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, who personally attended the ceremony at the Quirino Grandstand in Manila. The president referred to Gatchalian as Senate President pro tempore while recognizing officials and guests during the program. Earlier, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano maintained that he remains the legitimate, legal, and moral Senate President. Prior to his speech, the First family participated in the flag raising and wreath-laying ceremonies at Rizal Park as part of the Independence Day observance. A float parade and various performances were also held at the Quirino Grandstand. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Creseline Catarong, SMNI News.
Malacanang is extending its deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of the two Ateneo student athletes who lost their lives following a training activity in Aurora Province. During a palace briefing, Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro emphasized that an immediate investigation is necessary due to the tragic outcome of the training session. However, Malacanang notes that the public and stakeholders should not preempt the results of the ongoing probe. The palace adds that people must avoid making premature conclusions until authorities release their official findings. Meanwhile, Castro said President Bongbong Marcos Jr. wants a swift investigation not just into this specific incident but into all similar cases involving Filipinos. The Philippine Senate wants to launch an official investigation into the tragic drowning of two Ateneo de Manila University men basketball players during a team building activity in Dipaculao, Aurora. Sheena Torno reports.
Separate legislative resolutions have been officially filed to address growing safety concerns surrounding off-campus academic activities. Senator Robin Padilla and Senator Bam Aquino filed individual resolutions seeking a transparent Senate inquiry into the sudden death of two student athletes from Ateneo de Manila University. The legislative move follows a fatal incident where two Ateneo men's basketball players drowned in the waters of Dipaculao, Aurora on June 8, 2026. The victims, identified as Mindanao native Rene Clerk Baterbonia and Nigerian foreign student Divine Adili, lost their lives after being caught in the water during a scheduled team building activity. Under the provisions of Padilla's resolution, the lawmaker requested that the Senate conduct an immediate motu proprio inquiry. The investigation aims to thoroughly re-examine whether existing safety protocols and standard oversight policies are sufficient for students conducting school-related activities outside campus grounds. Padilla further emphasized that the primary intent behind the upcoming congressional investigation is not to immediately point fingers or assign criminality. Instead, the objective is centered entirely on uncovering the full facts surrounding the case to establish robust preventative parameters for future student trips. Instead, the objective is centered entirely on uncovering the full facts surrounding the case to establish robust preventative parameters for future student trips. Meanwhile, Senator Bam Aquino's resolution aims to review rules on school-organized off-campus activities. The inquiry will look into parental consent procedures, emergency response steps, and how organizers coordinate with local authorities. Both Senator Aquino and Senator Padilla separately visited Baterbonia's wake in Quezon City. The families of both student athletes are now calling for justice. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
In latest sports updates, fresh off her campaign in England, Alexandra Ayala heads to Germany with renewed momentum after securing a wildcard entry into the main draw of the WTA 500 Berlin Open, a key tournament in her build-up to Wimbledon. Meanwhile, the New York Knicks pulled off the biggest comeback in NBA Finals history on Wednesday night, overcoming a 29-point deficit to stun the San Antonio Spurs and move within one win of the NBA championship. Carlo De La Peña tells us more.
Ayala was initially entered in the qualifying draw but earned promotion to the main draw following player withdrawals ahead of the prestigious grass court tournament scheduled from June 15 to 21 in Germany. The wildcard entry provides the Filipina star with valuable recovery time after her recent campaign at the WTA 500 HSBC Championship in London, where she reached the round of 16 before bowing out to Iva Jovic. Currently ranked at number 33 in the world, Ayala will compete in a stacked field featuring several of the world's top players, including Aryna Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina. Her performance in Berlin could also play a crucial role in her quest to secure a seeded spot at Wimbledon, which begins later this month. A strong showing in Germany would boost Ayala's chances of remaining inside the top 32, giving her a more favorable draw in the season's third Grand Slam tournament. Meanwhile, OG Anunoby delivered the decisive basket with 1.2 seconds remaining, tipping in Jalen Brunson's missed three-pointer to lift the Knicks to a dramatic 107-106 victory and a commanding 3-1 lead in the best-of-7 NBA Finals. Brunson led New York with 36 points, while Anunoby added 33 as the Knicks erased a 29-point deficit after trailing for most of the contest at Madison Square Garden. The Spurs appeared in control after setting an NBA Finals record with 14 three-pointers in the first half. Victor Wembanyama finished with 24 points and 13 rebounds, while Dylan Harper added 21 points. De'Aaron Fox and Devin Vassell chipped in 18 points each. Brunson gave New York its first lead of the game at 105-104 on a floater with 1.22 remaining. Stephen Castle briefly put San Antonio back in front with 2 free throws before Anunoby's game-winning tip-in sealed the historic comeback. The previous largest comeback in NBA Finals history was 24 points, set by the Boston Celtics against the Los Angeles Lakers in 2008. The series now shifts back to San Antonio Game 5, where the Knicks will have a chance to clinch their first NBA championship since 1973. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo De La Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
Chaos erupted around Madison Square Garden after New York Knicks fans engaged in vandalism while celebrating their team's dramatic Game 4 NBA Finals victory over the San Antonio Spurs. Police were heavily deployed to disperse the crowds, with tensions quickly escalating into multiple arrests. Prince Tripoli has the story.
In New York City, a major basketball victory celebration turns ugly. At Madison Square Garden, a group of young fans climbed onto police vehicles, jumping and shouting, while others threw objects and damaged street property. According to local media, 56 individuals were taken into custody on disorderly conduct charges, including obstructing traffic, jumping on moving vehicles, engaging in physical altercations, and damaging police property. Police said 10 officers were injured in the clashes, adding that up to 10,000 people gathered around Madison Square Garden following the match. The post-game incidents also targeted members of the visiting team. A video circulating online shows Spurs center Victor Wembanyama targeted with eggs by Knicks supporters as he arrived at the team's hotel after the game. The incident followed the Knicks' dramatic comeback victory over the Spurs in Game 4 of the NBA Finals, winning 107-106 despite at one point trailing by 29 points in the third quarter. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, SMNA News.
There is simply no stopping Taylor Swift. The global pop superstar added another historic milestone to her record-breaking career, officially becoming the youngest woman ever inducted into the prestigious Songwriters Hall of Fame. The monumental achievement arrives hot on the heels as Forbes also crowned her as the richest female musician in history. Here's Faith Agustin for the show Buzz.
Stunning on the New York red carpet in a strapless black dress with floral motifs, Swift entered the elite songwriting ranks exactly 20 years after the June 2006 release of her debut commercial track, Tim McGraw. By joining the Hall of Fame at age 36, Swift shattered the previous female record held by Carol Bayer Sager, who was inducted at age 43 in 1987. Swift's induction caps off an unprecedented era of commercial success. Forbes recently placed her on its elite iconoclast 50 list, cementing her status as the richest female musician in history. Much of this jaw-dropping 122 billion peso fortune stems from her cultural juggernaut, the Eras Tour, which concluded in Vancouver in December 2024. The tour made history as the first ever to surpass the $2 billion mark, grossing a staggering $2.077 billion across 149 shows and selling over 10 million tickets globally. Swift has refused to slow down since the tour wrapped. In October 2025, she shattered records yet again with her latest album, The Life of a Showgirl, which secured the biggest debut week in music history by moving more than 4 million equivalent album units in its first week alone. With 12 studio albums, 14 Grammy Awards, including a record 4 Album of the Year trophies, and the most Billboard Top 10 hits of any female artist, Swift remains completely omnipresent. Fresh off dropping a new country track for the Toy Story 5 soundtrack and sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden for the NBA Finals, the newly minted Hall of Famer continues to prove that she isn't just playing the music game, she is entirely disrupting it. This has been Faith Agustin, your Global Citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest show buzz.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the Son. In everything you want to do, if you are committed, if you are consistent, you will succeed. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Almar Forzuelo. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.